The June 10th meeting of the Longview Metropolitan Planning Organization is now called to order. Today's meeting is being conducted via teleconference. We thank you for your understanding. Due to the format of this meeting, we'll begin today with a roll call to confirm members of the board are present and able to participate in our considerations. Board members, when I call your name, would you please respond with the affirmative if you are present? Clearwater Mayor J.D. Shipp. Here. White Oak Mayor Kyle Cooch.
Here.
Harris County Commissioner Philip Malden.
Present.
TxDOT Todd, Director of Transportation Planning and Development, Jeffrey Harmon.
I am here. Thank you.
TxDOT Atlanta District Engineer Buddy Williams.
I am here.
Longview City Manager Keith Bonds.
Here.
Longview Director of Public Works Roland McPhee.
Here.
Longview Director of Development Services Michael Shirley.
Here.
And a roll call of city staff. MPO Macie Wyers.
Here.
Okay, thank you all very much. A new policy board member is joining us today. Buddy Williams is now serving as the TxDOT Atlanta District Engineer. Welcome to the MPO board, Mr. Williams. I'd like to thank Mike Anderson for his service to the board and wish him well in his retirement. We appreciate you being here, Mr. Buddy.
Thank you, sir.
We're now to citizen comment. Those wishing to participate in citizen comment today, we're invited to access this meeting through a link to register with the teleconferencing application. Richard Dickley, the city's multimedia specialist, will moderate the citizen comment portion of our meeting. When you're called to speak, you'll be unmuted and given one opportunity to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. Please begin by stating your name and address for the public record. Mr. Dickley, do we have any residents who want to speak today?
We have several people here, but no one is raising their hand to speak, and no one indicated before the meeting that they intended to speak. So no comments right now.
Thank you, sir. We are now to agenda item 3, approval of the February 19, 2020 meeting minutes. Board members, are there any comments or revisions to the meeting minutes as presented? We will move to a vote. I will now entertain a motion. When making a motion, please state your name for the MPO staff.
My name is Roland McPhee. I move to approve.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
J.D. Shipp,
second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Mr. McPhee and a second by Mayor Shipp. We'll conduct a roll call vote. I'll ask each member in turn for their vote. When asked, please indicate your vote by saying yes or no. Mayor J.D. Shipp.
Yes.
Mayor Kyle Cooch.
Yes.
Commissioner Philip Malden.
Yes.
Jeffrey Harmon.
Yes.
Buddy Williams.
Yes.
Keith Bonds.
Yes.
Roland McPhee.
Yes.
Michael Shirley.
Yes.
And I'm Mayor Andy Mack, vote yes. Ms. Wyers, will you now confirm the record of the vote?
Yes, the motion was made by Roland McPhee. It was seconded by Mayor Shipp, and agenda item 3 passes 9-0.
Thank you so much. We're now to agenda item 4, approval of modifications to the Metropolitan National Highway System. This item will be presented by Ms. Macie Wyers.
Thank you, Mayor Mack. I wanted to first begin by giving some background information on the National Highway System and the importance of this study. The slide that you see shows an overall summary of the NHS system within our Longview MPO boundary, and you can see it includes facilities from a variety of designation efforts. So what I want to point out is the overall importance of the NHS is recognized by understanding the relatively small number of centerline miles, just 9% in our MPO boundary, and the relatively large usage. That 9% of centerline miles is getting used by 58% of our total travel. The NHS designation is therefore focused on a transportation system with the largest impact on the movement of people and goods. So this is certainly a regional perspective. So I'll briefly touch on the NHS study timeline. TxDOT hired a consultant and they began studying our system prior to meeting with MPO staff in March of last year. Following that discussion, MPO staff met with our technical committee in April to go over the specific routes and provide recommendations to TxDOT and their study team. Since then, TxDOT and the Texas Division of the Federal Highway Administration have reviewed our recommendations, and they made final modification requests for the MPO board's consideration this afternoon. So how did they conduct their review? In most cases, the NHS roadways must be functionally classified as a principal arterial or higher. Those are mainly our regional facilities. So the review of the main NHS consisted of a review of the function of our roadways and their alignment with federal highway guidance for the classification of principal arterials. So it can be broken down into really a three-step process. First, the team created a scoring process based on FHWA guidelines to develop a preliminary judgment of classification. This included things like traffic counts, the type of medians used, the amount of access control, and a couple other characteristics. Next, the team reviewed those corridors to ensure that they actually function as principal arterials, and that included a look at service to major activity centers, serving long-distance travel, providing regional mobility, avoiding residential areas with lots of access, and linking highways, freeways, and expressways. And lastly, the team looked at the suggested modifications to against the NHS system architecture needs. So what they started doing is analyzing the overall allocation of principal arterials, started looking at spacing and density of those arterials and what made sense for the NHS network. So from the study, we have a number of potential changes to consider today that are identified on the slide. The modifications include 2 additions to our national highway system on the west side of our MPO boundary, as you can see in the green. Loop 485 around Gladewater and US 271 north of Gladewater up to Gilmer. There are other 2 roadways in the Longview area are requested to be removed from the national highway system because the characteristics of these roadways align more with a minor arterial, which is just under a principal arterial. Those facilities include JC Drive, which is FM 2205, and Alpine Road, which is FM 2208. All 4 of the modifications listed are in agreement with the recommendations made by our technical committee last year. This isn't the last review of our national highway system. This is just a study from TxDOT to really get us up to date in cleaning up our national highway system in a consistent manner. So today I'm asking this board to consider approval of the modifications to the national highway system within our MPO boundary. The next steps would be an official submission of modifications to the Federal Highway Administration for final review. And once approved, TxDOT will release new maps and network data for our use in planning improvements for our transportation system. So that concludes my comments on the NHS modifications. I'd be happy to answer any questions from the board.
Does the board have any comments or questions regarding this item from Ms. Myers? Ms. Wyers, I'm sorry. If not, we'll move to a vote. I'll entertain a motion. Please state your name for the MPO staff when you make a motion. May I have a motion?
Kyle Cooch, I move that we approve the modifications.
Is there a second?
My name is Rollin.
I'll second that.
Who is the second from?
Philip Malden.
Thank you, sir. There's a first and a second. Now conduct a roll call vote. Please say yes or no when I call your name. Mayor J.D. Shipp,
Yes.
Mayor Kyle Cooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Philip Malden,
Yes.
Jeffrey Harmon,
Yes.
Buddy Williams,
Yes.
Keith Bonds,
Yes.
Roland McPhee,
Yes.
Michael Shirley,
Yes.
and I'm Aaron Mack. Vote yes. Ms. Wyers, will you please record the vote?
Yes, the motion was made by Mayor Kyle Cooch. It was seconded by Commissioner Philip Malden, and agenda item 4 passes 9-0.
We're now to agenda item 5, approval of the 2021 to 2024 Transportation Improvement Program. This will also be presented by Ms. Wyers.
Thank you, Mayor Mack. Today I'm going to go over the projects to be included in our Longview Transportation Improvement Program, and I will continue to refer to this as the TIP in further slides. So first, the Longview MPO includes the counties and cities shown on the map. All of our projects in our TIP are located throughout this region, as indicated by the navy blue shade. So some high points of the Longview Transportation Improvement Program. This is a list of local projects to be funded over the next 4 years. So these are all changes you can expect to go to contract in the near future. It's also a multimodal plan, which means that it can include projects relating to highways, bicycle and pedestrian facilities, transit services, and freight projects, as well as any preliminary studies used to define those projects. The Longview TIP is also meant to show regional agreement on the need and priority of a transportation project so that all parties involved can be sure they're making the best investment for the community. So it's expected to be consistent with the projects and objectives in our MPO long-range transportation plan, which we adopted in October of 2019. And this is to ensure that all agencies are working towards the same goal. So our TIP has been reviewed by the MPO's technical committee and the public. So today I'm here for this policy board to consider adoption of the plan. We break our projects up into two different categories. Our large projects are categorized as regionally significant, and they're listed as standalone items in the mobility project section. So an example of a large project would be the widening of a roadway from 2 to 4 lanes. And then to simplify the budgeting and planning process, our smaller projects are lumped together into subcategories, and we refer to these as grouped projects. A grouped project would be something like landscaping, safety lights, or new bicycle and pedestrian facilities. Basically, this practice facilitates the federal funding of smaller projects. So you'll see later on, I'll talk about some pavement and bridge work on our FM facilities. This map is included in the Transportation Improvement Program. It shows all of our mobility groups and facilities that are under development right now. So it's just a reference and a resource for anybody looking at those projects to be able to pinpoint a location. The first section I'll go over are our mobility projects. The first two projects we have on the books are scheduled to go to construction in year 2022. This is the phase 1 and phase 2 of the widening of George Ritchie Road. Phase 1 and phase 2 are expected to cost $13.49 million to construct. Phase 1 is from Gilmer Road to Pine Tree Road and will be a widening from 2 to 4 lanes with a center turn lane and a combination of bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. And phase 2 will continue that widening from Pine Tree Road to White Oak Road and will be a widening from 2 to 4 lanes with a center turn lane and a side path on one side of the roadway. Next, we have a pretty major project in our MPO boundary. This project is expected to go to construction in year 2023, and it's the interchange improvement of I-20 and State Highway 31. The project will remove the left exit onto 31 into Longview, and it will also widen I-20 from 4 to 6 lanes across approximately 2 miles of I-20, and this is expected to cost $150 million to construct. Next, we have State Highway 42. This project is expected to go to construction in year 2024 for $46 million with extents between US Highway 80 and White Oak, south to I-20. This will be a widening from 2 to 4 lanes with a center turn lane. And lastly, we have a combination project of 4 different phases. These are improvements to US 271 and Loop 45 in and around Gladewater. Phase 1 is expected to go to construction in year 2022 for $22.7 million. This is the widening from 2 to 4 lanes with a combination of a center turn lane and depressed median on US 271 south of Gladewater. Phase 2 is supposed to go to construction in year 2024 for $16.5 million. This is the widening from 2 to 4 lanes with a center turn lane of the south side of Loop 485, and this facility will also have a side path constructed on one side of the roadway. Phase 3 is the north side of Loop 485. It's also expected to go to construction in year 2024 for $5 million. This facility is already a 4-lane facility, and it'll be widened to 4 lanes with a center turn lane. And phase 4 is also supposed to go to construction in year 2024 for $4 million. This is a small portion of US 271 north of Gladewater up to the Upshur County line, and it'll be a widening from 2 to 4 lanes with a center turn lane. Next, I'll briefly go over the group projects listing. I also wanted to note that the preliminary engineering and right-of-way phases of our mobility projects that I just discussed are included in the grouped section of the TIP. So you'll see we have a lot of great improvements coming to our area over the next 4 years. I-20 will have improved guardrails to standards. US 80 and US 259 will have installed raised medians. Hazard elimination and safety projects will occur along FM 3358, FM 1844, and South Loop 281. There will also be bridge maintenance conducted across 2 different locations of I-20, one at the BNSF Railroad and the other at Mason Creek. More hazard elimination and safety work along I-20 and a bridge replacement along I-20 at Lansing Switch Road. Railroad crossing upgrades are coming to Industrial Boulevard in Longview. State Highway 300 and US 80 will receive hazard elimination and safety improvements, and US 80 will have additional raised medians installed. Hazard elimination and safety across 2 different locations along FM 726, and the repair and resurface of US 259 between Upshur County Line and FM 1844. And then along I-20 at the Sabine River, the bridge deck will be replaced. Lastly, along High Street at the Union Pacific Railroad, TxDOT's going to replace the bridges and approaches at that location, additional hazard and elimination safety improvements at FM 1844, seal coat at 2 different locations along South Loop 281, and the plane repair and resurfacing of US 80 just east of Gladewater. We also program transit funding into our Longview TIP. Longview Transit operates fixed route and paratransit services throughout the Longview area. They spend approximately $2 million to just under $4 million in any given fiscal year for their annual planning, operating, and capital expenses. We also have some exciting projects that are under development. TxDOT is currently working on the full widening of I-20 throughout our MPO boundary from 4 to 6 lanes. And TxDOT's also working on additional US 271 improvements north of Gladewater all the way to Gilmer. This facility is already a 4-lane facility, but it's undivided, and the improvements would divide that roadway. So they're studying those improvements right now. I also wanted to mention that our TIP functions as a budget for TxDOT, and so it's fiscally constrained, meaning it has to be realistic about the money available to cover all of our needs listed. So just to briefly touch on where those funds come from, the federal government through the current transportation bill, the FAST Act, the federal government allocates these funds through the processes established by the Federal Highway Administration and the Federal Transit Administration. TxDOT also contributes funds, and they allocate a section to budget for these projects through the Unified Transportation Program's 12 funding categories. And third, our local governments. Once the need has been identified and the amount of federal monies has been defined, the TIP helps our local governments assess the funding requirements to match those of the federal and state government and their capacity to meet them. So with that said, I really would like to thank all of our member cities and counties of the Longview MPO. Substantial contributions have been made by our local governments to allow these projects to progress. So thank you for those contributions. The timeline on the slide illustrates the TIP process and where we're at right now. The Longview MPO hosted a public meeting on May 27th, and that kicked off a 10-day public comment period. No comments were received by MPO staff, so we're presenting the final draft of the TIP to the policy board today for approval. Next, TxDOT's going to review our TIP for approval and integration into the statewide document. Once the statewide document is approved by the federal government, everyone's projects are funded and become one step closer to getting on the ground. That concludes my comments for this agenda item. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do you want to have any questions or comments to Ms. Wyers? I have one question, Ms. Macie, and it's not really a question. It's just on your very first slide where you were showing phase 1 and phase 2 with the Pine Tree Road situation.
Yes.
It showed that both those phase 1 and phase 2 are the exact same dollar amount. Is that just because we split the money, or is that the way that it just came out, the exact same dollar amount?
TxDOT, those are preliminary engineering cost estimates from a hired consultant by TxDOT. So there could be various reasons why those are the same amount of money, but they are individual cost estimates for each piece of the project.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any other questions of Ms. Wyers? If not, we'll move to a vote. Can I entertain a motion, please?
Michael Shirley, move to approve.
Is there a second?
This is Roland McPhee. I'll second.
There's a first and second. We'll now conduct a roll call vote. Please indicate by saying yes or no. Mayor J.D. Shipp?
Yes.
Mayor Kalkuch?
Yes.
Commissioner Philip Malden?
Yes.
Jeffrey Harmon?
Yes.
Buddy Williams?
Yes.
Keith Bonds?
Yes.
Roland McPhee?
Yes.
Michael Shirley?
Yes.
And I'm Mayor Andy Mack. Vote yes. Ms. Wyers, will you please confirm the vote?
Yes, sir. The motion was made by Michael Shirley. It was seconded by Roland McPhee. Agenda item 4 passes 9-0.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, this pretty much concludes our meeting, and I want to just take a moment to thank you all for taking the time to join us. I know this is a different format. It's kind of confusing to those of you all if you're like me, a dinosaur at computer stuff, but I appreciate y'all's patience and staff for putting this together and making it where we can still have meetings even in these times of difficult situations. So I appreciate you all for joining. So our Longview MPO Policy Board meeting is now adjourned. Have a great day.